really is, because one of the reasons why they want the kids in schools is
It's massive, and it's one of the biggest solutions out there.
yeah.
In
You would say, literally, if your child is being abused, would you not immediately get that out of the system? And there's always the excuses that come up at that point, like, oh, we would, except for we really don't have a choice, and we really don't have the. I'm telling you, like, everyone has a choice. Like, everyone has a choice to shift their priorities financially, like, time wise. It just, you have to have the courage to do it. The resources, Simon touched on it. The resources are phenomenal out there. Going into homeschooling with our two boys, we are overwhelmed almost by how many rock and options there are out there, and resources there are for parents, through groups, through books and programs. And you don't need to have an alphabet after your name in order to be a teacher. Like, that's another lie. Like, I guarantee you that so many parents are out there who would just, there's nothing like, you're going to be a better teacher than your parent, than what the teachers your kids are going to. But not only that, you remove all the propaganda out of the curriculum, and you will advance your kids so much faster. Like, they will be ahead of the game, because they're not going through all the garbage and whatnot that a
yeah,
public school probably wastes half their time on. And I don't know if that answers your question as far as, like, how do we get 50% out of there? Like, the only way to do that is to, like, have parents wake up and actually, I grow some balls and, like, have some moral courage and pull your kids out and figure it out.
yep,
Stop
Yeah.
spending so much in other
yeah,
areas.
yeah.
One of you stay home and become a full-time parent. It's the most rewarding thing you will do in your lifetime.
Yeah.
There's so in Sweden, kids don't have homework. I know, crazy, right? They just don't have homework. Why? Because they figured out that, like, if you let the kids go and play outside, they learn a lot of things being social with other children, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson, before he went woke, he was my favorite scientist, or whatever he is, hype man, I guess you can call him. But he did say something very important. He says, kids, one of the worst things parents can do is that they don't let kids be kids. So, for instance, when a kid's walking through a puddle, when he jumps in a puddle, the parent says, "Don't do that. You're going to get dirty." Right? You're removing the kid's natural inclination to want to know about life, because when you splash in a puddle, you see the water, you see buoyancy, you see physics, you see geometry. When you're climbing trees, you understand gravity more, you understand movement and physics and balance. So when you don't let kids do that, and you say just sit in that seat and stare at that wall, that's why so many kids have ADHD, because, like, they have all this energy. Let them explore the world. Let them understand what balance is like and geometry is, even without knowing what it is. Geometry is nature. So you're experiencing nature, and you're learning so much more than you would just sitting there and listening to someone tell you something out of a book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%, dude. It's really important. We're a big proponent of that. That, like, free play, and I think this is even something that Jordan Peterson has said. Free dramatic play for the first 7, 8 years of life is a child's primary means of learning and understanding themselves and the world. Free dramatic play is so much more than people realize. You don't comprehend as an adult, because you're an adult and you're so conditioned as an adult, how much actual learning is going on there. Deep, deep learning. And deep learning is a concept that people really need to grasp. Deep learning is the ability to absorb an understanding of something so that you can apply that understanding across different domains in your life. Whereas, like, a kind of shallow learning would be getting a math lesson where you really only understand how to solve that problem in that math lesson on that paper. But then you go and you end up in the grocery store, or you end up in a situation where you need those mathematics, and it doesn't translate because you haven't embodied that knowledge. One of the things that has been discovered in the research that I've looked into is that there's a lot of deep learning that occurs when children are free to play and socialize and be themselves. These are forms of deep learning where they retain knowledge that they can then apply to all the different domains of their life. Because guess what? Life isn't actually divided into subjects. That's another like weird thing that we're caught up in. That's not life at all, right? So, we look at, as a family, we look at it as life learning. Really, like, the term unschooling to me is really more about the parents, because you have to like unschool yourself as a parent to be able to take that approach. What's really going on is life learning. You're trusting life to teach your children about life, which is like strangely simple for some people, but we've watched it happen with our kids. You realize that they are forced by life to use mathematics to problem solve, just running a household, doing the laundry, all these things. Like, when the kids are invited into independence and into working their way through the problems that life presents them, and they are entrusted with that process and supported through that process, there are forms of deep learning that unfold that completely rival something that's rigidly laid out in a curriculum. And it's something that I think people really need to grasp.
I mean,
There's
you're
a lot
talking
more available.
about legit life skills.
Yeah.
So they're actually learning how to be productive citizens instead of learning how to be victim leeches that need government to survive.
Yes, exactly. And I think, I look at this I try to look at it the way that our enemy looks at it. Our enemy has been working on generational like warfare that reaches across the generations. They're doing things right now that they see will hurt the next 3, 4, 5 generations. That's how this kind of, and this is even what Yuri Bezmenov said. He said they're looking to have multiple generations of influence, and a lot of this is incrementally done so that it occurs so incrementally that it's kind of invisible. The end game is invisible, but then once you get that third generation, you have people that really can't think. I want to think that way. So I'm not just giving up some of my lifestyle and some of my income for my kids now. I'm thinking in terms of my family legacy, a legacy of free thought, of my great grandchildren being able to think freely because I took a financial hit to do the right thing, because I gave up some of my lifestyle to do the right thing. That's how serious this is, because those are the kinds of people that we're up against. We have to be thinking that way. If we're short-sighted, if we're thinking in terms of just our kids now or just political cycles, then we are up against people who are just going to outsmart us every time.
Here's just as a real world experience or real world analogy, I guess. People a lot of times make fun of Amish people, right? They're so backwards, they're so like, they don't know anything. Who would you rather be in an apocalypse with? A gender studies major that has a PhD, or an Amish person that knows how to use their hands and make stuff? I don't think anybody, no matter how far leftist you are, you either lie to yourself or you're a complete idiot if you say that you want the gender studies major that got a PhD at some Ivy League school. That really tells you what is a real world experience and what are the real life skills that you need, which we're not being taught. Like Simon says, like, actually, that's pretty funny. Like Simon says, but like Simon said, it's, what do you want? Like, life is not regimented. It's not divided into certain things. Everything meshes together. And if you can't put those together, which requires critical thinking, I mean, look at Gen Z. They can't do anything.
No.
They literally can't do anything. They start screaming. Like, you seen videos, they literally start screaming at the top of their lungs when something that they want, when something happens that they don't want to happen. That means they can't deal with it. They can't speak and they can't tell you what they want. They just sit there and start screaming. Like, that's like a primal animal, right? Like, what does a lion do? It just starts roaring. It's all it can do, and attacking. That's what we're making our children into.
Yeah.
And it's all on purpose.
Yes, it's intentional.
That's what they need. I mean, even like you mentioned, like viral videos and whatnot, like look around, look how many like 20 to 30-year-olds there now. I mean, these are the fruits that are coming forth right now. And these people don't know how to cook. Like, if they literally just can't open a plastic bag and start eating or throw it in a microwave, they will, a lot of them would starve. Like, and that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. But it's on purpose, because if you can control them to a point where they need you in order to be fed, Like if they need you in order to survive, for finances, for money, I mean, you take away every aspect of their health and wellness, and then it's that easy to implement communism and socialism and Marxism, all sides of the exact same leftist coin. I mean, you just outlined the plan.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
And
and
your
it's like,
point, Fabian, though, I don't think anybody would want to be stuck with a person that doesn't know what is a woman. So regardless, you know, who you put on the other side.
Yeah, literally
if
anybody.
you can't answer what is a woman, I don't think you want to be stuck with that.
Yeah. Someone who just screams when their Uber Eats doesn't get there on time is not someone who I want to spend the apocalypse with. That's for sure.
And I mean, you can't go wrong with some good old Amish butter. Give me that Amish butter.
That's right. That's absolutely
well, you
right.
know, there's a reason why you know, there's this great book that I really encourage everyone to check out. It's called The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. And it's really rock solid. And one of the things they promote in this book, you know, about surviving this modern war and some of the worst case scenarios that could come, is to dominate the physical domain. And they actually give you a homework assignment in the book. They say, go and make a list of the people in your physical network, not online, but in your actual physical community, who have skills that you don't have. So write down the nurses that you know, write down the mechanics that you know, write down the plumbers that you know, get a list of people that you can dominate the physical domain with that have these kinds of skills, and keep that list on hand. We don't realize the dependency that's been created in this modern era. And so that's, you know, I thought that was like a really poignant part of that book. It really kind of hit me hard, where I was like, shit, yeah, I really need to list all the people that have these skills that I don't have and form that network, because that's the kind of sovereignty that, you know, I think is naturally going to be occurring, whether or not we experience some sort of technological blackout or anything like that. Like, I don't know, but we are moving into a more decentralized era. That one of the major issues is just centralization of power. That's just flat out. It's been one of the biggest problems that we've encountered, you know, in all the domains of our society, and it's why so much is collapsing. You know, centralization of power has ruined the school system, the healthcare system, you know, the governmental systems. So we're watching humanity respond in this massive sort of movement towards decentralization. So forming these networks and recognizing that those kinds of life skills need to be put together into a network in the offline world, that's just like a really basic step that you could do. Like, you could go start that list tonight easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about that makes me wonder also, what would you guys think of if the schools, right, during Obama's administration, it became really popular. I forgot the exact act that was passed, but they essentially made education be all one standard. They had like a federal standard, and regardless what state it was, they had to comply with those curriculums, whatever it was. You know, during Trump's administration, it definitely saw a more state rights kind of incentive takes place. But what would you think of a school that was in your community, a trusted place? You knew the teachers, you knew the curriculum. Would that be something that you would opt into and say, okay, you know what, that's actually pretty good? Or would you still favor, you know, homeschooling or unschooling, you know, whatever term you really want to use?
I mean, I'm pretty devoted to our current model, only because I know that knowing my children very deeply by enriching my time with them and being with them consistently and guiding them consistently is the ultimate means of protecting them. Knowing them deeply is the ultimate form of protection.
Yeah.
That, to me, that's been it. That's revealed it all to me, because it's not just about protecting my child's innocence in this broad generic way. Their innocence is unique. And to protect them correctly, I need to know them deeply, which means I need to spend time with them and reflect on who they are by being with them all the time. That's ultimate to me, and that's one of the reasons I'm passionate about it.
You know, there's a question that was just asked, and I was actually going to bring this up earlier when I said I forgot my next point. So Kelsey asked, "Don't they investigate families if they don't put their children in schools?" So I thought that if you don't show up in school, that the government basically comes after your parents or you. So they're forcing you to go to these indoctrination camps. But what? How do you get around that aspect with the homeschooling?
So my answer might not be the one that's the popular answer, but there has to be a level of non-compliance before things will change. And uh, we have to stand up for it, especially when they come after us. Because if we comply, nothing's going to change. And so the threat of them doing something wrong shouldn't stop us from doing something right. I mean, that's literally the foundation of our country when we just kind of stand up and say, okay, enough is enough. We're now non-compliant because, well, one, now we have the Constitution to back us up, and we say we're not compliant because we have these God-granted, rights that are protected by our Constitution, and let's have that fight. And when I say fight, let's have those court battles. Let's start winning it. We cannot be afraid of it. I can't tell you how many times I have the rationale of fear is more important than your child's future. Like, we have to stop that. We have to, so let them come. There's probably better answers to that, but let's have that fight. And that's why having circles like with you guys now, like I feel comfortable that I could reach out to you guys for awareness sakes. If any of our brothers or sisters out there have that battle, we group around them and we fight like hell. Like we do not ease up. We spread the word. And so, like I said, Simon got me started. He's the one earlier who was saying this was a war. So I'm ready to go, Simon. You call on me, brother. Let's
Yeah, that's it.
So, by the way, there's some people trying to join, and unfortunately, I can't accept it, or I tried, but there's a 4-person limit on Instagram lives. So for everyone trying to join, unfortunately, yeah. But actually, so yeah, how do you get around that? Is it
Yeah, I'll
legal
speak
to
to
actually
that.
just take?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So it's unique to where you are, right? You have to look, like here in Canada, we have to look at what the rules are, the laws are in each province. In the States, you guys want to look at what the laws are in your particular state about homeschooling. Some states are more rigid and aggressive than others. So you need to get familiar with local laws to understand the way that they're framing homeschooling. I know that in some places you have to like prove to the government that the child is meeting certain educational milestones. Whereas, here in Ontario, there is zero government intervention. We are 100% free to educate our children however we want. We don't have to report anything, nothing.
Wow.
So we are very fortunate. It's one of the reasons we appreciate where we're living, that we can educate our children freely without any influence of the government at all. But I know that there's some places, some provinces, and some states in the U.S. where they're rigid, and you got to be more mindful about it. But I also agree that we should be standing up against laws that are unjust, that claim you need to report to the government about what you're teaching your children. I think that's bullshit. I think that should be absolutely challenged. And you're much more likely to do that effectively by forming a homeschooling network of parents that are all going to not report together. They're all going to stand and educate their children freely together. No better time to do that than now, during this revolution of education where new people are homeschooling and unschooling every single day. They're making that leap.
Yeah. And by the way, so you might notice the shirt that Simon has. It says Dad Army. So he is a member of the Dad Army, which is a group of, well, clearly it says Dad Army, so you kind of know what it is. Dads who fight for, the rights of children, and everything that's good. And there's also a Mom Army, and the Mom Army is headed up by a lioness named Seek Smith, who is friends with all of us, and she was actually in Beneath Sheep's Clothing, Steve's movie, and so she founded the Mom Army. So amazing person. You can follow them at the Mom Army, I believe, or just Google the Mom Army. And I bring that up because she says that they concentrate on 2 L's, legislate, and what's the other one?
Litigation.
something like litigate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are fighting for these to change these laws in different parts of the country to get things like this, exactly what you're talking about, to legislate them and to litigate them.
And
She,
actually, go ahead.
I was just thinking about something she actually says in the movie, and she does it a lot more um better than this, but she makes it very simple and plain. So we have to stand up now, and we have to start suing the shit out of people when they come against stuff like this. And she's absolutely right. They will not learn their lesson until we start punching back, and not in that violent way, but in a way where it does actually hurt them. Like, nothing would be better than for us to start suing the hell out of public schools for every little indoctrination, every little Marxist attempt when they do treat our kids like animals and whatnot. Suing them is the only way to really hold them accountable. And after so many lawsuits, they have to start withdrawing. But yeah, that's Seek for you. She's an absolute badass. Which
How do you? So my question is, how do you effectively legislate though? Because Governor DeSantis in Florida tried to, and the media went on a whole campaign calling the bill "Don't Say Gay," and that's literally them just trying to protect grade school kids. They're not even talking about high school; they're talking about elementary, and I think that it was up to middle school. But like, they're legislating it because they're trying to get the indoctrination out of there, and yet the media runs with this, indoctrinating the left on a talking point, like a straw man talking point, said that's bad because they're saying whatever that they're trying to pass there. So how do you effectively legislate in this current environment right now? Honestly, I mean, I've been pretty pessimistic this life.
Well, I think like their warfare is quite predictable now. So if you're preparing any kind of lawfare, it is not hard to understand what kind of propaganda they might release in return. This is something that I've spoken to many people about, that you want to be in a position to have your responses and your campaign ahead of the game in terms of what they're going to say and do, because they're not unpredictable. The way they spin things is generally pretty consistent. So there are ways of preparing your campaigns so that you're not just going for the the legal aspect of it, but you have media ready, you have like content ready, you have your propaganda straight, because theirs is coming. Like the idea that we have to like go and like wage the lawsuit and then we're like caught off guard by all like the nonsense they put out there. It doesn't need to be that way anymore. Like they're gonna fucking do it. So
Yeah.
get your propaganda straight, and then also look for the wins, right? Go and dig around for the legal wins that are important to highlight, to get your foundation, to get your morale up. Like, for example, before the 1 million March for Children protest that occurred here across Canada, these were very successful because it was parents coordinating across the country. It made a really big impact. But leading up to that, what happened was parents pushed the provincial leadership. So they pushed numerous provinces in Canada to make it illegal for schools to secretly socially transition children. And this was the parents standing up saying, no, you cannot secretly socially transition our children. And they actually got the provincial leadership to successfully pass these bills. Now, the left freaked out and they tried to reframe it and say that they're outing kids, they're outing LGBTQ kids against their will. But the truth is that they were just trying to maintain the power to secretly socially transition children. And it was only kids under 16. Like these bills that got passed just say you can't socially transition children under 16 without parental consent. It's actually like not even that extreme, but they did successfully do this. And there's examples of these wins that you really do have to go and gather for yourself, study why they won, and just build that morale, because it's easy to get blackballed, of course,
Template.
Yeah.
So we've been going for about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes or so. So I did want to wrap up just I know everyone's time is valuable tonight, and I got dinner waiting on me as well. So
Smells good
because
through the screen. That's when you
yeah,
know it's
yeah,
good.
yeah, it smells great. So, Steve, can you tell people how to get a hold of you as far as like your socials and the movie? Again, just to kind of reiterate what it is and how to find the movie as well.
Yeah, I usually kind of like to stay in the shadows, but you can find me places that usually if you type my name, Steve Ray Rey Sorensen, I'll pop up. Steve Ray Sorensen, I'll
Yeah.
pop up. I'm on X. I'm here on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Uh, but yeah, and most importantly, Beneath Sheep's Clothing movie will take you right there. Uh, Go find Julie Beeling, who wrote the book. Follow James Lindsay. Alex Newman, Trevor Luden. I mean, like all of those guys are really kind of the brilliant minds behind it. So uh, Lisa Logan, again, like I said, they will get you prepared for war. They really will. They will fill your coffers full of ammunition. So
Yeah.
but it was nice to meet you, Simon. I love what you guys do, Fabian. Like your whole crew and whatnot. It was rad meeting you at America
Yeah.
Fest and whatnot. Like Big Mike. I mean, like Michael. I don't know if you guys actually call him that, but after meeting him, that's sort of his thing. But
Big Mike,
what a
Michael.
yeah, what a brilliant like group of dudes who are actually, I don't know, so effective with what they're doing. Thank you so much for letting me come and just kick it with you guys for a bit.
Oh,
So
it's been great, man. Appreciate it so much.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you
man.
so much, Steve.
and I'm amped for all your movies too, Simon. Like amped. So
Right on. We'll stay in touch, man.
yes.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, guys. That was awesome. It's always a great conversation, honestly, and I really enjoyed it. And the last thing that I'm gonna leave all of y'all with, so you guys don't think that we're extreme or crazy or anything like that. Even 70% of progressive or Democrats agree with us about these topics regarding kids and not indoctrinating them, especially when it has to do with all this sexualizing them and switching their genders and stuff like that. So we are actually not the radical ones or the extreme ones here, and so that's always important to know.
Yeah. And the last point I'll say is here's the crazy part. Conservative just means that you want to conserve the status quo. That's all it means. People are like, that's all it means. You want to preserve the status quo. So if you don't want things to get crazier and you don't want like where things are going, guess what? You're conservative too. And on that, we'll end this. Thank you so much,